Welcome to PDK International's Emerging Leaders podcast series. In this series, you can listen to interviews with PDK's emerging leaders. Don't miss what these young leaders have to say about their career paths, helping others to develop leadership skills, and more.
Welcome. I'm Erin Young, PDK's Director of Electronic Media and External Relations. With us today is Christie McWilliams, a member of PDK International's 2008-2009 class of emerging leaders. Christie is an English teacher at Slyfair High School and a doctoral student at the University of Houston. She lives in Cypress, Texas. Christie was selected by past emerging leaders from a competitive field of nominees based on her professional accomplishments. The careers of PDK's emerging leaders exemplify the PDK tenets of leadership, research, and service. Christie, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Could you share the highlights of your career path with us?
Sure. I think what comes to mind first as far as highlights go are the differences that are occurring within my classroom with my students. Anytime a student is able to grow or change based on what's happening in my classroom, I feel like that's really, truly a highlight of my career, as it is, I'm sure, with any teacher. For instance, we recently were reading poetry, dealing with themes of carpe diem and trying to talk about ways to apply this to our lives, and students would go home and perhaps tell their families that they love them and report back to class about the changes that they made in their lives, and it's those instances that are the true highlights for me. Beyond what goes on in the classroom, though, recently I was named a finalist for the HEB Excellence in Education Award, and this past weekend I was able to attend a retreat and an interview and an award ceremony where they announced the winners. Now, I didn't win, but I was one of the 5 finalists in my category, which was a real honor for me.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. That was really exciting. And I think another highlight that's ongoing is I'm currently working on my doctorate right now, and I'm starting to enter the dissertation phase, and I'm getting really excited about my topic. And once I get in a little bit further, I think that I will continue to gain enthusiasm about it and feel like that'll be a highlight when I'm finished.
What do you enjoy the most about your current job?
That would definitely have to be the students. I teach seniors in a dual-credit English classroom. They get credit for senior honors English as well as college English. And what I like about this group of students is they've been together for so long. They've developed a bond with each other, and there's a level of comfort going into the classroom that lends itself to additional enthusiasm within the classroom. And so working with those students, it's really easy to be really passionate about teaching, and they're passionate about learning. I think that's the most important part of it.
Can you tell us about a challenge that you faced in your career and how you've overcome it?
It's not a specific challenge. It's just an overall challenge that I face every year. Teaching a college-level writing course lends itself to hours and hours of paper grading. And I know that sounds really weak, but that is really the biggest challenge for me. For instance, when my students turn in their research papers, I spend, to do a good job on them, at least 30 minutes of paper, and I have this year 110 students. Next year, because of increased class loads, I'll probably have about 150 students. So one research paper takes anywhere from 50 to 70 hours to get through on my own time, and that's just one paper. So the way I overcome that challenge is I try to pace myself and do 10 a day. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't, and I overcome it by just staying up late at night and getting the work done. But that still to this day is the biggest challenge of teaching, and it's the thing that I think about all the time.
As an emerging leader, you are still early in your career. What are some of your professional goals, and how do you plan to achieve them?
Well, right now I have a lot of options, all of which seem interesting to me. I think maybe that's another challenge, too, is that I want to do so many things and can't pick one. I see myself in 10 years still teaching in the classroom. Certainly, I might teach higher ed in the form of an adjunct teacher, but my passion rests with 12th grade in what I'm teaching right now. However, on the side, I would like to engage in research and engage in presentations, write for publication, publish research along the way. And I'm especially excited about my dissertation topic, which is I'm going to do some qualitative research, finding students who are gifted or are of high academic potential who have committed violent crime and getting their perceptions of the experiences that have shaped their world. I'm going to be asking them about their social, emotional, and academic needs that were and were not met, not necessarily to place blame on parents or teachers, but just to kind of see their perspective or their perception of the world and how that might have influenced their decisions. And so I'd like to continue working with this topic after I finish my dissertation, in addition to teaching, and actually branch out into the prison system. Because in 1999, it was estimated that 20% of prisoners were of 130 IQ and above, in the gifted category, which is kind of disproportionate when you think that only 3 to 5% are identified as gifted in the public school system. So I think that that's an interesting research area for me, and I'd like to keep going in that direction, in addition to teaching.
One of the marks of a leader is helping others to grow and develop as leaders. How do you encourage people to develop their own leadership skills?
At Cypher High School, where I currently teach, we already have that kind of culture. We encourage others to grow as leaders. My individual contribution extends outside of the district. For instance, I'll encourage teachers to come with me to presentations on the state or national or even or international level and present some of our strategies, some of the research that we've done, et cetera, to others outside of our district. And so I think that's what my contribution is as far as getting others to grow professionally and to share knowledge. For instance, recently a teacher and I presented at the Texas Association for the Gifted and Talented conference here in Texas, which is the largest gifted conference there is, and we presented ways to immerse gifted students in culture while traveling with them overseas to others who are interested in taking gifted students around the world. And we're incorporating some of our information, a lot of which is research-based, into a book that we hope to publish pretty soon. So we're trying to share information with others outside of our little world.
Now, you touched on this next question a little bit in your previous answer, but perhaps you could talk a little bit more about how you provided service to the field of education throughout your career.
You're right. I think that I pretty much touched on that before. And I'm hoping that my dissertation will be a big addition to education in general because it's such a timely topic, especially in light of Columbine and the increased media attention on school violence since then, particularly including students with high potential. So I think that's going to be my focus in the future.
What advice would you give to a high school student who wants to pursue a career in education?
First, join a Future Educators chapter on his or her campus if there is one. If not, start one because that'll open a lot of that'll open doors to opportunities to learn about different topics in education. I think that it's important to kind of know what you're getting into before you decide to go there. I wish that, even though I'm very happy as a teacher, I wish that I perhaps had known a little bit more about education and what it was really like before I became an education major and subsequently a teacher, because I was in for a few surprises.
And what have you found to be rewarding about your career in education?
I think the reward comes when the students tell me things like, I don't know how or when or why I've grown, but I know that I have. Or another student said, what we read in class has caused me to be able to sleep at night. That was a recent comment that I had. Any kind of comments that show that what we're doing in class touches them in a meaningful way.
Christie, thank you for joining us today, and congratulations on being named one of PDK's emerging leaders.
Thank you so much, Erin.
You've been listening to an interview with Christie McWilliams, a member of PDK International's 2008-2009 class of emerging leaders. To learn more about PDK's emerging leaders, go to www.pdkemergingleaders.org. Thank you for joining us.